doing this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, beginning is if you just say your name, age, occupation, and talk a little bit about your family and where you consider home.
Okay. So my name is Ryan Schwannenberger.
You just speak up though, because it's
My name is Ryan Schwannenberger. I'm 30 years old. From Florida. I have divorced parents. They both live in Florida. And I do consider Florida home.
your occupation.
Team leader at Hobby Lobby.
Cool. Okay. And then we will start off with kind of like basic questions. Let's see. Okay. What are your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors relating to race and ethnicity?
Just an overall aspect of that, just in general.
Yeah. Like, do you have any instances where they kind of like geared your take on race and ethnicity in like in American culture?
I mean, I think there's a constant battle, especially now with cultural appropriation. Living in Florida, no, not necessarily. There's a big mesh of race there. I mean, you have your people or groups, I guess, that don't necessarily get along. But in a sense, moving to Oklahoma.
Moving to Oklahoma, sorry.
I guess one thing in Florida I was never really around was the Native American ethnicity. And then moving to El Reno in Oklahoma, there was a larger amount of Native Americans around. And I did notice a dislike towards white people, in a sense. And so I worked at Walmart with a Native American young woman, and we would actually start talking, or we would get on the subject about Native American and whites, and it was actually kind of eye-opening, kind of learning more about their culture. There was an instance where she told me she went to Washington, D.C., and people thought they still lived in teepees, which was kind of astounding to hear that there's still people around the U.S. or just in general that think Native Americans are, I guess, uncivilized in a sense, or I don't know the right word.
They're just not kind of up to the times.
Yeah, like they're still behind in some type of age of living, and they still have to. They go through that every day, being Indian. I guess. Yeah, especially I guess towards Halloween.
Right.
Because a big thing, like in this discussion I had with this young woman, a white person wearing a headdress is extremely offensive to them, because those are worn by chiefs, respected members in their communities, and then you have people going out on Halloween dressed as Native American Indians when it's kind of ironic because they put them, I mean, you could bring the Trail of Tears up for an example. Is basically a genocide of Native Americans from the white community, I guess, if you want to say, and they have the audacity to put on a headdress and dress like a Native American when we as, originating from Europe. You know, we migrated over here, and this was their land, and we took it from them. And also, Native Americans are the only race and ethnicity that are I don't want to say tracked, but the government keeps a blood quantum
Right.
of their race. So that was pretty interesting to learn.
Interesting.
Yes.
So moving on towards the media and race, how do you see it differently, especially once living in Florida? Do you perceive media coverage different living in Oklahoma or overall in the United States? How do you think that race and ethnicity are perceived through the media?
In an overall aspect, I think things are definitely targeted for a certain demographic of people. Especially the past few years, we had several situations with the police and blacks and shooting unarmed, or the police took maybe overbearing actions that they didn't need to, or the situations escalated quickly in a sense of the force that was used, and some men lost their lives. And I think the media, they cover certain stories because there are things we don't even know about that happen that maybe they decide not to report on, or maybe they just choose a certain instance to flare up the people, maybe cause controversy, or even to get people talking, because media now is not just the news. You've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even Snapchat, and you have all these channels of media to receive news, and you don't have all the facts as well. So I think the media for a long time, I really haven't seen it change. I mean, since I've moved to Oklahoma, I don't really watch the news as much. I just catch it if I were to be at work, or if there's somewhere where there's cable. I don't have cable. But to get back to the fact, I think they pick stories to appeal to a certain demographic and just get a rise out of people, or even just to get people. The perfect instance is the young man who was wearing the Trump hat, and there was a Native American man just beating his drum and singing in his language. And the way the media made it seem, or a certain news channel, because I mean, in a sense, everybody's in everybody's pocket. So I know you have certain news channels that are on the Republican side of things and on the Democratic side of things, and that led to a lawsuit from the young man, which he actually later won, because the media showed the story one way and they left out details prior to the events leading to that. So I guess the media hasn't changed. I think it's been doing the same thing for a while. They just bait certain age groups or demographics.
Do you think that there is a solution in your eyes that the media can better coverage, especially, you know, the U.S. is called a melting pot for a reason, because we have so many different ethnicities and races all living together, but this problem continues with racial and ethnicity differences and tensions being built just because of the color of their skin or where they come from. Is there a way that media can help? Should they be held more accountable, or?
I think the first thing the media should do is drop any political association or political, like, don't do this Republican Democrat stuff. And maybe what they could do actually is create their own stories in a sense of sharing other cultures' history, or maybe better educate everyone in a whole with the cultures, because yes, we do have a melting pot, and there's a lot of things we don't understand. And I think other races do have a greater history in their culture, and there's a lot of things that we as white Americans don't understand. I personally think that they should do more educational things and bring people together so we can understand one another, instead of running stories about white white cop shot a black man and what is this doing to the community. And maybe they could run a story and actually get communities involved and say, do you have any ideas? Who's willing to come and teach us about their culture so we can better understand each other as a community and as a nation?
Nice answer. Okay, so to kind of end everything, is there any other type of advice or comments about race and ethnicity that you would like to add? Maybe like something where you saw race or ethnicity was a part of a childhood memory, or a friend that you have known that has to deal with certain type of instance.
There was an instance, one of my best friends, he's black, not that matters, but in this, when I had looked back on this incident and replayed what had happened in my mind, it did seem kind of racially targeted towards him. So we had gotten pulled over in Orlando, Florida, on the college campus for the UCF nights, and I didn't have my lights on pulling out of the garage. The cops got called. The K-9 unit got called, and then during that time when we were off to the side while they were searching the vehicle, one of the officers had asked my friend if he had been arrested before, and he said yes, and they asked him what for, and he said, I don't have to tell you that, I'm not going to tell you that. And then they proceeded to make assumptions, and there were 3 assumptions. One was rape, robbery, and then homicide. Now, at the time being, I wasn't thinking about it like that, but after I had reflected on the incident, I feel that was him kind of racially targeting him because of the color of his skin. And then also when they searched us, they had groped him, and I think that he was maybe trying to get a rise out of him to do something, maybe to possibly make an arrest. So I think there is the big issue, or what the media does cover, is like law enforcement and color, but that's a whole nother monster. But that is an incident that I do recall where I think race was definitely, just because of the color of my friend's skin, they made an assumption that he was a type of person, when it doesn't matter who you are. Any person of any color can commit those things. So yeah.
To wrap things up, anything else you want to add?
I mean, we could all turn off our TVs and put our phones down and go next door and meet our neighbors and find out a little bit about them and where they came from, what kind of trials and tribulations they went through in their life. You know, we pass all kinds of people every day, and most of the time we don't talk to them, even to the cashier behind the counter. Sometimes we're in a rush, but even a couple questions a day can help someone out or make someone's day better, or open your eyes to things that are bigger than us.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.